hello. Here we are. It's All for United, but not WFC. Don't change your sets. Yes, it's me, the little one from the women's channel who sits there and chats rubbish. And I've been contracted to do it again for another hour or so with these three fine gentlemen. So we shall crack on with that and see where it takes us, to be honest with you. If at any point here you've decided to tune yourself in the hope that you can unleash your fury and support whatever it is you're thinking you would like to do for a certain player who has hit the news today, probably go somewhere else would probably be the best thing I've got to say to you there, because anything that comes up in our comments about that, we're just to ignore until the club themselves have come out with an official statement as to what they are doing. Then maybe we'll be in a position where we'll discuss it. But until then, emotions are going to be running too high and nobody's going to have a sensible conversation about that. So we shall very much leave that to people who are far more in the know than us. And I'm sure that we will return to it at some point, if it's even necessary. So that's that one. Anyway, why are we sitting talking about things that are going to upset us when really we want to talk about the delights of Mr. Ten Hag? I was going to get everybody to sing happy birthday, but what's the point in that? He won't hear us. So we'll just say, happy birthday, boss. And well done. What a present. He only went and got us to a bleeding final. Oh,
and the first attempt.
First attempt. Absolutely that. And my question that kicks off for the three of you was you surprised just how strong he went, considering we were 3-0 up? Straight in, no dramas. I'll put my strong team out there. What did you reckon? So, Andrew, what sort of choices would you have made those choices? What did you think?
I was a little bit surprised he went so strong. I thought we were 3-0 up, and I just thought we would make a few more changes than he did. But I thought, well, he's taking this competition very seriously, and you just want to keep that consistency with the side as well. So those players that are playing week in, week out. I mean, in terms of the game, I think the first half, I felt like we're not running on all cylinders. I just felt like we could, I know we're 3-0 up, so we didn't have to go in at full pelt. But I mean, Forest were just sitting back and absorbing the pressure. They were just trying to counter us as well. And I think we had that first half chance from Weghorst. I think the goalkeeper saved it. Actually, I thought he'd hit the post, but from my angle. But somebody said, he actually saved it. And then second half, we just got up the tempo a bit more, and then obviously Rashford and Martial combining for the goal, and then Fred scoring the easiest goal he probably ever could for United. But just rounding off the win as well. But yeah, I'd say I think that's what in terms of the side. I think Ten Hag's just going to keep playing his strongest side, and then with one or two changes, he's not going to really, mix it up that much in the next few weeks. He just wants that consistency with the side as well.
Absolutely. And Stu, I don't know where you stand on the David De Gea discussion, but Tom Heaton kicked off in position. I might have opened a can of worms here. I've got no idea. Regret it. I might need to just disappear for a minute whilst Stu goes. I don't know what I've just said. I don't know where he stands. But what I do know is Tom Heaton started the game. And in a way, that was quite cool. What was your thoughts on having Tom Heaton start the match?
I think it was the right thing to do with Tom Heaton. I must admit, I thought Butler might have got a start, but I don't know if he's injured or he's not match fit. I don't quite know, and I'm not quite sure what's happening with there. He seems to have come into the club and hidden under a quilt. Maybe he's tired. I don't know, but we haven't seen him, have we? We haven't seen anything of him. We haven't heard much from him. We don't know where he is. But I think it's a good thing that Tom Heaton plays. Look, most people know who follow me. Know that I've been very, very critical of De Gea over the last 18 months to 2 years. And I'm seeing a different side of De Gea in terms of his ability or his willingness to want to come out and mop up more than what he used to. The last 18 months, I've been critical of him staying on the goal line, and that caused issues for our central defenders and our midfielders. But I won't go into all that now. So, hence, that's why. What I did say on a show a few days ago was that I felt that it would be prudent, it's just my humble opinion, to have ran a weaker squad. And I'm talking squad for Reading and for Notts Forest. is we've got 8 games, I think now, if my memory serves me right, from Palace until the end of February. And in fact, I think, don't we play Barcelona midweek before the Cup? The second
Thursday, the
Yeah.
second leg.
Yeah,
At Old Trafford,
massive,
so we're not away there.
it's massively congested, our fixture list. So on when you actually look at what Ten Hag's done, you've got to really credit him for believing in the fitness of the players and believing in his structure that he's implemented since he's taken over. But there does come with a danger, and it seems strange me talking about this because he's obviously a very experienced manager, but it comes with a danger where you will have to utilise fringe players and they're not going to be match action. Or they're going to have very little match action. And that can be a problem. It has been a problem for us in the past. And I worry it could be a problem for us moving forward. Having said that, you can't take away the euphoria of the club actually making a cup final, Carabao Cup. You've got to start from somewhere. I think Ten Hag is 6 to 8 months ahead of his plan. I don't think if he were realistic and Ten Hag was realistic, he may speak about wanting to aim to make a cup final, but I think his real focus would be stabilisation, which he's done. He's accomplished all of this in this very short space of time, and I think it'll make his job a lot easier this summer because he's already 50% where he wanted to be, in my humble opinion. So I'm massively impressed with Ten Hag. I've got an issue with some of the players, though, because they're showing now what they are capable of. And it just proved to me that they couldn't be bothered under Solskjaer towards the end and Ranić. And that bothers me. As a footballer, you should always be giving your best. Bruno pretty much said it. I'll give him some credit on that. He said they was playing as individuals rather than as a team. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, Barry, but I would have thought a weaker squad for those 2 games would have been more beneficial to us. But who am I to argue with what Ten Hag's done? So I'm absolutely delighted. I'm made up. I'm not going to get into the club because if I start getting down that line now, I'm going to get a bit angry.
Yeah, so, do that. We'll have to mute you. Go down there.
So it's all good. It's all good on the Western Front. So I'm absolutely delighted. And bearing in mind, we didn't just win the semi-final; we obliterated Forest in the semi-final. And Andrew was right. We took our foot off the gas. We weren't particularly interested in the first half. I think Ten Hag got into him in the second half at half time and said, "Look, we must win this game of football. We have to win this game of football. Get out there and win it. Go to Wembley in style." And then you put it to bed, Baz. You forget about it now, mate. It's gone. It's done. And we're looking at Palace. So anyway, I'll shut up now. Sorry.
That's fine. It's all good stuff. And John, as Stu said that, you would have thought, certainly in the past, you would start with a weaker side. And I believe deep down, if Alex Ferguson had been in charge of that side, he 100% would have rung the changes for that. We'd have seen youngsters getting starts and all manner of changes going on. It seems like a very different culture, not just here, also in the women's game. We seem to be seeing it quite a lot now, where they are starting their strongest side. And I would argue there's 2 changes, really. David De Gea obviously swapped for Tom Heaton, and Garnacho played as well. So what's your thoughts on how Garnacho's been settled in? There was, I think it was Izzy Christensen or one of them was talking about it during the match and saying that she wanted to see more from Garnacho, that he wasn't being consistent enough while he was playing. So what's your thoughts been on Garnacho and the squad selection?
Yeah, I think it's interesting as a whole in terms of outside 11. Maybe Ten Hag has maybe taken a leaf out of Mourinho's book in his first season in terms of like he picked his strong team and he was like, no, I want to win something this year. And that's possibly why he went with a strong team. He doesn't want to take things for granted. He's going with what he knows and that. I do think it's perhaps a bit surprising, but having said that, you think of players like Varane and Shaw, they've had virtually a week and a half off, so you can see maybe why he played them. Obviously, with limited midfield because we've had Eriksen and Donny get injured, so and Scott McTominay as well. So almost the midfield almost picked its through. Maybe you could have played like Mainu or someone like that in there, but you couldn't rotate too much there. As for Garnacho, I think you see the goal and the bad side. I do actually agree with what the commentator was saying yesterday. That I know Stu used I mentioned it sometimes. It's like he's obviously got the pace. He's obviously a nuisance for right backs now, but I think at times maybe he just needs to improve his decision making. He is only 18. I'm sure in years to come he will improve there. And obviously he has won us some big games so far this season. But I do think in terms of like some decision making, sometimes his feet are quicker than what his brain is at times. And obviously he's clearly got the talent to be a good player. But I do think at times he just needs to be that little bit more, use his head a bit more. Don't look to do too many complicated things. I think there was one incident in the second half where a player made a run and basically he tried passing and he passed out play. Whereas the player made the run, he could have taken it inside, and maybe had a chance himself. So for me, it's just that basic decision making. He has shown it at times, but it's something he needs to develop going forward. But no, that he's a brilliant talent.
Absolutely. And Andrew, I know you want to add to that, but just talk to me a bit more about how you think the choice of that starting 11 affected the first half and how we came to that game.
I'd say it was a strong lineup. I'd say people would say Ten Hag probably needs to rotate his team a bit more, but like I say, he's actually clarified himself. He values first team players gelling more and by playing more games together. I don't think he's going to change his stance anytime soon. I know we've got a busy schedule this month, but this is where these key players are going to be in most of these fixtures. So you want them playing regularly together. So, saying that, there's still a few worries. I mean, like last night, with a few players that went down as well, like Rashford around that tackle by Surridge on him. I was like, just seeing him grab his ankle, I thought, thankfully he wasn't injured and, all the players came out unscathed. But I'm just thinking in future games, it might not be the case. I'm just thinking like Eriksen when Andy Carroll was a bit of a menace and was trying to take him out left, right and centre. But I think that's where the rotation squad is going to come in effective. The use of the 5 substitutions is a positive one, but it's going to be a difficult task for him in the next month or so. But I'm confident Ten Hag will see us all the way through. And I mean, just example like Tom Heaton, he came in and it was only his second start, but he's one of those commanding goalkeepers as well. So I remember seeing him in the friendly or pre-season friendly last season, of just so commanding it outside of his box, shouting instructions to the players. So don't expect him to be starting in the final, but let's say if Ten Hag was deciding to give him a chance, I wouldn't give Heaton his opportunity, but just see De Gea being the number one. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting month ahead for the squad.
Fair points. And I was going to bring up Neil's thing about the commentary, but he appears to be about to unveil a full quote, so I'll give him a little bit longer to throw that on there. And John, you might end up talking about that. But what I was going to ask you, Stu, is what is it that you thought, for want of a better term, went wrong in that first half? Because if you started strong with your strongest lineup, you would be expecting them to go out, and the idea being get a couple of goals, and then you can bring on some of the other players that maybe haven't had too much game time. That would be the idea in my thinking as to what he's trying to do. Didn't manage to do that until the second half. Why?
Yes, I mean, semi-final football, from a mental point of view, is quite strange, especially if you're doing it over 2 legs. If you're going into a single match game, then it's a completely different mindset. You're going out there and you're going at it to win the game. And the gaffer will always say to you, look, you've got 90 minutes. You need to squeeze those 90 minutes into the first 20. And you'll be looking at him like going, what are you on about? And then he'll say, look, You get us 2 goals up in the first 20 minutes, you can then relax and you can then start playing yourself into a rhythm. With two-legged football, when you've got such a lead, 3-0, it's very difficult to motivate yourself to go out there and perform at the very highest level because it's almost not necessary. And that sounds really strange because we have seen plenty of examples where teams have come back from 4-0 down. AC Milan against Marseille years ago is a great example. They're 4-0 down in the first leg and they came back. And I think they won the second leg 4-0. So these are great. There are examples out there where complacency can really bite you. The problem really for last night was that Forest, well, they had their moments. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't really have a moment. Not a moment that would make you, decide to kind of up your game. So I can kind of understand the complacency in the first half. I can understand players already thinking they're there. And that's where good management comes in. This is what I was saying before, Barry, that Ten Hag would have got into them at half time and said, look, we're not drawing this game 0-0. We're not losing it 1-0. You want to get to that final, you want to appear in that final, you've got to pull your fingers out, fellas. And if you don't, I'll bring on the lads that will. And so as it transpired, Martial came on. I think he looked really, really sharp. Rashford came on, and players started, the players started to play, for the final spot, so to speak. So it's always hard. It's never easy. Anyone who's played football will know if you're coasting in a game, at any stage of a game, there is a danger of complacency. And it's one of the reasons where you should always shake up a first 11. Because if you know you're on that team sheet week in, week out, and Martinez and Varane are both good examples. They've both been rested, for want of the better word, this year, because you shouldn't go into any game or any week knowing you're going to play at the end of it, unless you're a goalkeeper, because it's a completely different position. It's so specialised that. And when you do, honestly, you play at 70%, 75%, because no matter what you do, you're still playing the following game. So I like the way that Ten Hag does his rotations, very small and subtle that they are, but it keeps everybody focused. And that wasn't what happened. And I think that's why he got into them at half-time. So it's just funny one.
It's interesting. I mean, like I said, I've seen it a few times. We spoke about it on the women's channel. We spoke about how Skinner made massive changes for the Conti Cup and they're out of it, and that explains why. So there is a balance to be done when you make your changes, absolutely. So Neil has been doing his research, so let's help him out now and throw this out there. We spoke about Izzy Christiansen, and listen, I can't disagree in terms of the co-commentary. I did not sit there particularly think she set the world alight, and I hope that she would go home and look at that herself. But let's be honest, we've got some really rubbish commentators, full stop. Lee Dixon, anyone? I mean,
I watch most matches on mute now.
It's a lot better, isn't it? I think there's probably some people watching this on mute as well, to be honest, now they've seen me on here, but you never know. And they might be enjoying it more, so it would not surprise me. But there are some pretty atrocious ones, like I say, Lee Dixon and Michael Owen made me want, honestly, I can't finish that sentence because it's probably not PC. But it annoys me. Anywho, he did find the whole quote, and here it was. And it was an interesting one, John, because it was one that we spoke about. He's played enough games for Manchester United now. He needs to start showing some consistency. And what Neil's found there that is quite good. He scored 2 goals, 5 assists in he didn't quite do his maths fully there, but around 700 minutes of first team football, which isn't bad, really. I mean, that's 11 games maybe. That's not 11 games. My maths has gone now. It's more like 7 or 8 games that he's played there. And that's basically a goal or an assist per game on average. So it is pretty good, to be fair. And yes, it's the reason why commentators should make sure they do their research before they say anything. But what I would say is that she was talking about consistency, and actually he has been a bit up and down. There's games where he does contribute and games where he doesn't. Do you feel that this was a game that he did contribute in, because obviously he was substituted eventually, or not?
I think he showed, obviously our performance the first half wasn't great, but I think at times it did look, we did go down the to the byline and tried to cross in, and he did with a couple of free kicks for us. So I wouldn't say that he was terrible. I mean, like I say, he is clearly talent and that, but I do think there were times yesterday where his decision making was a bit questionable, and I think that's where, while that quote isn't great, I think I can see what's meant in terms of like the consistency where he's got to improve his decision making. It almost always has to be spot on at times, and he's only young. He's obviously, as the stats show, he's having a really good season. That, and Ten Hag, this is why I think as an impact sub he can be useful. He assisted the Rashford goal in the derby, for example. But for me, I just think he needs to, and it's natural for young players. Sometimes you do make the wrong decisions, and it is about developing that consistency and knowing where to put the ball and knowing when to dribble, knowing when to pass. And he will make mistakes and he will develop. But I do think the point about the consistency is a valid one because he's clearly talented. He makes some good decisions, but there are times when it's questionable. So for me, he does need to learn that, and I think he will.
Absolutely. And I think the key word you just mentioned there is consistency. So let's move on to a player who...
Can I just drop in about Garnacho quickly?
Go on, what are you going to say? Go for it.
Well, all I was going to say is, and Neil makes a really good point about commentary, etc. But he's actually, when you look at what Garnacho's doing and the point that he's making about the consistency level, you have to bear in mind that a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, they're coming against playing similar age players, so it's completely different. So when you're penetrating the box with a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids, it's completely different to a seasoned professional. And this is what you can't really teach a footballer. This is the one that he's got to almost work out for himself. This is where guidance comes in, and where you're able to say to him, look, just look at what you're doing. Follow it from a slow motion point of view. So you slow it down completely. Follow your footsteps from a slow motion point of view. Look where you could have slowed the defender up and able to come back inside and around the defender. Or look where you could have slowed him up and then got really to the byline and crossed it. These are the things where you can help guide a player. When you're playing against kids your own age, it's very, very simple. It's get at it. You might be physically stronger than that child, but you're not going to be physically stronger than Carl Walker, as an example. And that's how you've got to kind of look at it. So I think Neil makes a really good point. And I've been quite critical of Garnacho based on some of the games that I've seen him. But the last few weeks, I think he's improved a lot in his decision-making, his use of the football, when to run with it at pace, when to not run with it at pace. And the great example was the winning goal for Rashford at the Manchester derby. He looked and he thought about what he was going to do. So I kind of see when
it was a brilliant one, that one, wasn't it? Because he put the cross in, it came back to him, and everything in their mind would have said, my back's to goal, I'm facing away, just lay it off for someone to have a crack. And he didn't. Yeah. He knew exactly where Rashi was. Exactly. Little turn, took the defender out of it, and then straight away with the cross. And it was just in time because Rashford was probably, a gnat's hair away from being offside. So,
he was.
Let's say with the first goal then.
Yeah, well, still love that one, Fernandes. So, listen, as I say, talking about consistency, let's talk about Mr. Consistent, my favourite player at the moment, and a guy who, quite frankly, I don't mind saying I'm a little bit in love with this season, and that's Marcus Rashford. He does it all. He feeds kids, he scores goals. He's a legend. I love this chap. And he came up with 2 assists in this game last night, and what a player he was. Now, I saw a tweet about this, and for me, it absolutely made sense. Just imagine, right? You're Nottingham Forest, you're 3-0 down, 63 minutes on in the game, you're 0-0 thinking, well, this is better than last time. You're absolutely shattered having played all that football. You look over at the side, you see Marcus Rashford, Jaden Sancho, and Anthony Martial about to come on. Surely that would be enough to make you go, oh. And that's exactly what happened, because on they come. We've got to say about Jaden Sancho, what a reception that was. The last time I saw a reception like that was actually when Phil Jones had that game, and he came on, he got all the love, and he ended up getting all emotional. So were you there, Andrew? You were, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there.
Talk to me about that reception for Jaden Sancho, because that sounded special.
I say there was a lot of love for him last night, even when he was doing his warm ups as well, singing his name, and then when he came on, I think Ten Hag picked the right game for him to return as well. I thought he might have came for the Reading game, but I thought Forest, he chose the right game. It was a high profile game in a moment where you had low stakes with it because we were cruising into the final anyway. But it was, it gave Sancho the opportunity to make a decisive impact. And I mean, and what it did, he made, he brought Martial and Rashford all on at the same time. So it's like showing all the spotlight wasn't, just solely focused that, he brought his teammates around him to come on as well. So, and when they did, all those three came on, what surprised me was, I thought, well, Rashford's going to go on the left, Martial's going to go through the middle, and Sancho's going to go on the right. And then I was like, oh, he's going through the centre, so he's just going to sit behind Martial, who's doing the Bruno role. I was like, oh, so this could work out in Sancho's favour. So, I mean, he thrives in that attacking midfield role like he did at Dortmund, and he obviously played the part in the second goal of the night scored by Fred. And I mean, adding that position, Sancho into that places him in a role where he can, be at his most dangerous as well. I mean, when the game began to break in our favour, he was getting a lot more space. He could counter attack with the ball as well. So we've got wingers, but not really anyone who can fill in for Bruno in that attacking midfield role. So we've got the likes of Ahmad out on loan and Eriksen now injured. Sancho coming back. It's almost like a new signing again. And I'm just thinking, I'm confident Ten Hag will, start getting the best out of him. And, he's going to have a positive impact in the rest of the season too. So yeah, a lot of love for him, and so yeah, it was good to see.
And I hope he does. I really hope he does, because he came with much fanfare. Hulkster's saying here that Garnacho needs 2 stone quicks. He can have some of mine if he wants. I've got plenty spare. No dramas there. Just let me know. I'll pop it in the post. Not a problem. John, talk about 2 goals very quickly. Fred and Martial. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, Martial's goal, I stood up and cheered that because, and I'll tell you why, because he smiled. I find when Anthony Martial is smiling, he's a player that can be untouchable and can be the best player that he can be. It's when he's not smiling, he's a nightmare to watch. But when he's happy and score a goal. He does. What do you reckon? 2 goals. Talk me through.
Definitely. And as a message, didn't Fred and Martial score in the league game against Forest and just after Christmas as well in the 3-0. So they scored in back-to-back home games against Forest. So and Fred scored 2 and 2 as well.
That boy.
And basically, but yeah, it's obviously great to see Martial smiling, and obviously we all recognise he's a very talented player, and basically the issue with him is, can he stay fit? And that's what we're all questioning that, because no doubt he's got the talent. Clearly, Ten Hag likes him, and he sees him as important for his system. And that front 3 when they came on, they did do a job. As for the goals, Martial, it was a bit of a bad pass to Rashford, wasn't he? He should have made off, so he got a bit lucky there, but obviously came back to him and he stuck in the corner. It was a good finish, and for me, it's great to see him. You just hope he stays fit, because he will get you a few goals. Tony, he does bring players into play when he does play up front, and like I say, it's just a question whether he stays fit. And obviously, the second goal was, it's a fantastic team goal. I think all our front players, apart from Martial, were part of it. So Sancho obviously crossed it to Bruno, beautiful cross. Obviously, defending coming better, and then Rashford it back, and Fred, was there, and I just think we did look more of a threat when they made the changes and that, and it's great that the team is linking up in that way, that you're finding each other, and and it's important for when winning games and scoring goals. And for me, the second goal was a wonderful goal in terms of like the build up and everything. And for me, Fred, he's scoring a few goals. I think he's scored 3 since Christmas. So he is. There are certain players who are picking up a few more goals now, and Bruno's scored 3 in 6 games. So yeah, you need that. And Rashford hasn't scored for a couple of games. So for me, it's good. Some of the other players are scoring now, and hopefully, we can continue to do that because we can't just simply rely on Rashford goals. But yeah, 2 lovely goals yesterday.
I mean, I've not got the stats definitely 100% in front of me, so I can't be 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain that Bruno Fernandes is on as many goals as Dimitar Berbatov for us, with roughly the same amount of games, which I think is pretty something considering he's not an out-and-out striker. So, good points. Stu, you're a man whose opinion I respect. I may not always agree with it, but I respect it. So I'm going to ask you this question right here. I'm going to say his name wrong, and I apologise for it, but Weghorst. 2 questions on this young man. Number 1, was it a penalty? Because there was contact. Interesting. So what was your thoughts on that one? And number 2, do you feel he's doing enough? Because if Martial's going to come back and do what he's done in that game there, score a goal and get us goals, is there not an argument that Tony might find himself back in front of Wout, and Wout might find himself Wout? I don't know.
Very, very clever. Is he doing enough? Let's tackle that first. We're not playing to his strengths. Is a simple fact. When you've got players like Rashford and you've got players like Anthony, I said on a show a couple of days ago, you're going to find in the headline in the Manchester Evening News that Anthony's been decapitated because Weghorst is making those challenges in. He's making those runs in, and Anthony's dicking about with his fucking whatever he tries to do instead of crossing the ball. When you're like Weghorst, if you watch his movement, he's very, very clever with his movement. He's very clever inside the box. He's very clever outside the box. He's got a decent touch on him, and he knows where the goal is. But the ball's got to come in. He has to be delivered. Now, years and years ago, when Ruud van Nistelrooy used to play for us, if we went ahead and scored 5 goals in a game, we won 5-0, and Van Nistelrooy didn't score, he'd be smashing the fucking changing room up. Because hold on,
Palace and icons.
Yeah, you had a chance to lay me in 3 times and you didn't. I'm the fucking striker. Give me the fucking ball. And Weghorst is going to slowly but surely start to strangle players in and around him because I would. Because to be a striker, you've got to be fucking selfish. You've got to be Alan Shearer-esque. You've got to be selfish. They don't care how they score. Tap in, off your arse. It doesn't matter. I'm there to score goals. And if you're not delivering, which Anthony doesn't deliver, and on the flip side of it, by the way, you've got Rashford at the minute, as you quite rightly say, Barry, is playing at the top of his game right now. He's cutting in and taking a shot off instead of delivering for Weghorst. So when you've got Rashford on the left and you've got Weghorst on the right, Anthony on the right, Weghorst is always going to have an issue. He's going to have a problem with delivery into the box. So in answer to your question, is he doing enough? I would counter that is he allowed to be doing enough? Are they allowing Weghorst to be the player he is, or are we just circumventing Weghorst? At the moment, I feel sorry for the guy because I just think we're circumventing him a little bit too much. Your point is well made, though, about, and by the way, I don't see Martial as a number 9, I never have. But your point is well made. Martial comes in, he scores, drops to his knees, prays to the skies, smiles, etc., etc., etc. And, we're all, it'd be great if Martial could go. But if I'm Weghorst at the minute, I'm having Anthony and I'm speaking to Rashford. I'm saying, fellas, don't dick about with it. Beat your man, get the ball in. It's almost old school number 9. It's almost Barry, Andy Gray-esque. Andy Gray. He would go absolutely berserk if that ball wasn't put in, so he could launch himself at it with a diving header. But it's all about delivery for Weghorst. So I do feel quite sorry for him. Was it a penalty? It was the most stupidest challenge ever. Ridiculous tackle. I don't know what the defender was doing. I don't think Weghorst himself couldn't believe what was going on. I think. I mean, he comes in from behind. I didn't see him get the ball. It's a stonewall penalty for me. I have no idea. And then the second phase of play, we give away a free kick, don't we? Pretty much seconds after. So I don't know why. But I will say one thing though. If it's given, it's given. If it isn't, it isn't. You kind of got to get on with it. You kind of can't. You're upset. You're angry for a split second. But you've got to. There's always a second phase of play. You see, whenever you get a tackle in the box, whether it's a penalty or not, there's always a second phase of play. And if you can capitalise on phase 2 of the play, you've still got an opportunity to get a shot on goal, which is the idea. So that's where I see Weghorst. I feel a bit sorry for him. I don't know what the lads think. I don't know what John and Andrew think, or you, Barry. I don't know what you think really, but I do think that he's not being played to his strengths. That's my.
Yeah, I'm a host. It's not my job to think. It's my job to ask the questions. If I was to think about it, I'd go. I still find it weird. I do. I sit there, and every time I hear him go, and it's Weghorst on loan from Burnley, it gives me Antonio Valencia vibes. Of we bought him from Wigan. It doesn't feel like the sort of team that you get your players from. But listen, I want him to do well, and he scored a goal, and so he's off the mark, and I want him to do well.
But Barry, his goal, right? It was a phenomenal piece of skill, and this is about 6 foot. He's 6'6", isn't he, Andrew? 6'4". Yeah, something like
6 foot. Yeah.
The speed of thought and the momentum that he needed to push that ball into the back of the net was phenomenal. It was not an easy goal, but just look at the speed. He was up and he was ready. He was waiting for it. He was waiting to mop anything up, and. We just need to play to his strengths. And I'm sure Ten Hag's speaking about this already, but it really depends on who you've got on the wings, because Anthony just doesn't deliver. And it's such a shame because I do like him, but I'm fed up with the little game.
I was going to say, if you noticed that Weghorst goal he scored, or Anthony shot, you could, when he didn't go in, you could just see him just sulking straight away. And I was like, well, Weghorst just reacted straight away. I'm going to put it in the net. Whereas Anthony, you could just.
But the thing is,
okay, didn't go in, but you could have just reacted and you could have tried and got the rebound as well.
Absolutely.
You put Weghorst in that box when you've got the likes of Beckham and Giggs putting the balls in. 100%.
I mean, there was one cross. It came from Casemiro and he hit the balls. Now he would have been disappointed he didn't score there.
Yeah, that's
the one thing you would say. Well, when you do get a chance, you are bury it. And he unfortunately didn't.
The problem with that, John, is though, in all fairness to the guy, he's probably had 3 crosses in how many games has he played for us now? 5 games.
They cost about 5, not many.
Yeah, about 5 matches. He probably only have 3 crosses to feed on. That's no excuse, by the way. I think he should have buried that header. It was a wonderful cross. Yeah. He should have absolutely smashed it. But he did. There's a couple of occasions where Palestri got a cross in, and he had to take the header from behind him. It was a brilliant header, and he was unfortunate not to score. So we're not seeing the best of him. I think Plush, if I apologies, mate, if I spelled that incorrectly, but he's right. His anticipation, and he just needs some kind of service. He's absolutely right.
Apparently, the last time we saw that, Jesus was a child. So that's amazing. I thought we're already invented in the 1800s. But there you go.
Yeah,
says it all.
Well, it's no Christmas then.
Well, going back to the Hulkster, because he made a point a little while ago, and I just want to get this on before we move on to Palace, because we've done a great job of reviewing. We've got to get a preview in tonight as well. United v2 and get ready for the atmosphere. My question for you is this. I want to go on a great big long circumvented chat about it. I just want to know your initial thoughts. Are we coming home with the Carabao Cup, or have we got ourselves all excited for nothing? Andrew?
No, we're definitely bringing it back to Manchester.
Confidence there from the wall. What says Stu?
We'll win the cup, but for Man United.
Yeah. We might get to that at the end. Stu's a bit annoyed with the ticketing people, and rightly so by the sounds of it. If you're the person that's got a ring Stu tomorrow, good luck, mate. John, what say you?
Yes, after a thriller.
I think it'll be a close game. Actually, I think John's right.
I can see it being one of the best finals in years. Like,
So
I think the last time we won it was 3-2, wasn't it, against Southampton? I can see it being a similar game to that, actually, end to end and everything. So yeah,
99 was the last time we played them in the FA Cup final, wasn't it? We beat them 2-0.
Sheringham and
Well, there you go. This isn't me talking to myself here. Just to point that out, that'll be Connor jumping into the conversation.
That's it.
Yes, hashtag justice for Stu. He's definitely feeling it.
I like that.
Neil thinking Newcastle ain't a big club. Well, it might not be, but give it a couple of years, and I think the job that Eddie Howe is doing there. Bearing in mind, they haven't really bought anybody that really makes you sit up and go, "Oh, that's a good signing," as in top level. That kid.
I was going to say they're going to have Guimaraes back as well because he got a red card, but they got 3 league games in. So he's back for the final. I was like, how crafty is that? I was like, you should really miss the final. But
they got 3 league games.
Red cards in the League Cup applies to the league game, so they're set on that.
Neil, not a huge fan. He's right. He has got a long way to go. Of course he has, but he's only just back. I can already see people sitting there saying, people we should need to go and get in the summer. Listen, we've only just got rid of 1 transfer season. Let's worry about the summer in a few months. But you, by all means, in the comments, throw yourself around there and talk about all the people you'd like to get. Enjoy yourself. Just don't be too upset if I don't stick it out there. I've had enough of the transfer season for 1 year. Let's crack on. So good. Sounds like we're coming over the Carabao Cup, which is great news. Let's start talking now about Patrick Vieira and his Palace full of crystals. 39 wins we've had against that team, 10 losses and 13 draws in all the time we played them. You would expect us to do quite well. However, last time we played them, 1-1. There we were, happily 1-0 up, and then tears as we let it slide. I believe the thumbnail says, it's hard for me to tell, I'm not sure, this was unexpected, but I'm pretty sure it says, have we learned our lesson? So I'm going to ask you that question, because I believe that's what's on there. Andrew, do you feel like we'll have learned our lesson against Palace?
Oh, definitely. Ten Hag will have gone away from that game and analysed it, from the first minute to the last minute, and we'll put a plan together for the game on Saturday. I mean, despite that disappointment and conceding at the end, and then the Arsenal game, I just think the team and us fans are like in relatively high spirits. Going into the month ahead as well. So I mean, Palace have been one of those tricky sides for us. I think we've only won one of the last 5 meetings against them, so we can't take them lightly this weekend. And I mean, looking at what Palace have got coming up as well, I don't think they've won in their last 5 games either. So, and they've got a run of fixtures that, I think they're 7 points clear of the relegation zone, but they've got to face us, Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool, City as well in the next 6 or 7 games. I mean, they might be, by the end of it, looking over their shoulder going, oh, we've been sucked back into the relegation zone. But no, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think Saturday we'll definitely be more on the front foot, and we'll, try and, even when we go goal, we'll be going for the second and the third as well. So we can't, rest on our laurels, because a few times being at Old Trafford, Palace have just come away with the wins and been left disappointed. So, but no, yeah, I think we've only won each of our last 12 games at Old Trafford in all competitions. So, Old Trafford is rocking at the moment, and we want to keep it going as well.
There you go, Andrew. We're all going for my Stato title there, isn't he? Throwing them all out. Well played, sir. Mr. Commode, I'm not a betting man, and my understanding is you're probably not either. But let's throw the odds out there. We are apparently, and I don't know with which bookmaker, bet responsibly and all that jazz, 4-11 on to win this game. 8-1 Crystal Palace and a draw 11-4. And I think what that basically tells us is we're going to win, aren't we?
I think we'll win, yeah. Obviously, as we know, Palace are a tough zone. And obviously, the last time we played them at Old Trafford was Rangnick's first game when we won 1-0. And who scored, Barry?
I beg your pardon, you asked me a question.
Who scored there when we beat Palace last year? 1-0.
Who scored when we beat Palace last year?
Yeah.
Don't ask me questions like this. I was just say, I'm here to ask the questions.
Fred scored. It was Rangnick's first game, and he scored 2 in a row. So Brighton's there. So, but no, for me, obviously Palace will be a tough opponent. But as Andrew said, we've won 12 in a row at home. So we'll be
Fred scored.
Yeah, but it'll be. So it's a case where they'll be lucky 13 or unlucky 13, won't it? But for me, I think I do think we'll win the game, and obviously I'll come to the prediction later. But yeah, I think we'll win, and I'll sell us nicely for 2 matches against Leeds. So yeah, bring it on.
There we go. Apparently, Connor got it first. So congratulations, Connor. Well done. You are a winner at life. Well played, sir. Stu, team selection. You had your little say on how you think rotation should happen and such like. My understanding is obviously, well, not my understanding, we know there's no Van der Beek and we've got no Ericsson because he's out till April. We are waiting on people like McTominay and obviously Sabitzer. We don't know if his paperwork is through and if he'll be available yet or not. The hope is that he would be. Where do you stand on those people potentially playing? You would imagine that Fred's played himself into that position against Casemiro, and certainly Ten Hag has built that up as being a Brazilian partnership. But do you see room for McTominay if he's fit, or a debut for Sabitzer if the paperwork is finalised?
Good old Sabitzer, however you pronounce it. Interesting signing, that one. I've seen a lot of Sabitzer experts recently. Which I find bizarre because whenever you see anyone talk about a midfield replacement, I don't believe Sabitzer's ever come into conversation in anything that I've ever seen. So it's quite interesting to see there's the Sabitzer experts out there. Funnily enough, Frankie de Jong was in the summer, and both John and Andrew know my opinion of that one. I made the similar points. Everyone was going about, De Jong will do this for us, De Jong will do that. And I'm like, hold on. When did you say that? 18 months ago. And nobody did. It's really quite interesting how people buy into that. I don't see Sabitzer starting. I can see why he was brought in. But I would always raise a question as to why you can't cement a place at Bayern Munich. If you can't cement a place at Bayern Munich, then, I would just always raise an eyebrow. I've seen the YouTube clips like everybody else, and the YouTube clips are phenomenal with his free kick expertise and his steady yard shooting. But will he fit with what Ten Hag wants to do? Not on Saturday for me. I think, Barry, you're right. I think Fred comes in straight away. I think it's a midfield 3 of Casemiro, Fred and Bruno. I think it kind of picks itself. Going back to the thumbnail title, have we learnt our lesson? I don't think there's a lesson to be learned, really. And I'll tell you why. Because, and John and Andrew, you all know this, the magic of football is all about free kicks of that nature, isn't it? Now, what happened before that and why we conceded the free kick, I agree. We could all argue that point. It was a stupid challenge, etc. But sometimes in life, you just got to take your hat off to absolute quality. And there's nobody was stopping that. Nobody. It was a wonderful free kick. And so I actually predicted, by the way, that it'd be 1-0 win to us. And I was kind of there up until the 92nd minute. And then that happens. And sometimes you just got to say, you know what? I'll shake your hand, mate. Because that is a phenomenal free kick. So I think we played okay that day. I think we controlled the game well. But I tend to agree with both John and Andrew. I think it'll be a different type of game, Barry, on Saturday. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff. Old Trafford will be rocking. And I think we'll control the game a lot better. We'll control the pace right from the start. We'll control the flow. We'll control the fluidity of the match. I think we'll make Old Trafford quite large. And I think ultimately we'll probably end up winning 2-0. I know you'll go through for predictions after, but I think ultimately we'll end up winning 2-0. But I think it'll be a very comfortable afternoon in the way that we play. So Sabitzer, not for me, for the reasons I've gone through. And I would say Martial, not for me either. just yet. Just give him a little bit of time before you bring in Martial. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
It very much is interesting, and you're right with what you said about the Crystal Palace game. We were ahead and pretty much home and hosed until the free kick. That was our first watch along. Connor and I were both sat there watching along. John joined us at half time and full time. And John will verify what I'm about to say. I was fuming because it was the stupidest free kick in the world to give away.
Yeah,
There was no need. There were people behind them.
Yep.
It was absolutely no need. It was an unnecessary panic. And yeah, there we go. The player went down, and it's one of those where you're always a bit nervous when it's that far out, and sort of Beckham-esque against Greece.
Well, that's what I mean. I thought when that free kick was given, I was like, yeah, it's a decent position, but it's not like a position where it's a great chance. And it's one of those positions where to go in, as Stu mentioned, it has to be a worldie to go in from that kind of like angle.
It could only go in one place.
Exactly. So it's not like
the kid found it.
It's only a free kick to give away because what ended up after, because otherwise you say it's inches, basically.
He does that. He does that at Old Trafford. It happens again at Old Trafford. He misses. With all due respect to the lad, he misses, and we all know he misses, and that's why we love football. That's why we love football. For that one moment where somebody produces something ultra special, you just got to put your hands up and say, "Fair play, mate."
Absolutely. You can't score them all. And Connor's right to just point this out. I will throw this out here. There is a special show dropping. It was recorded today with a Bayern Munich fan on Sabitzer. So he will give you a little bit more information on what was seen, because as you mentioned, interesting that he's not starting for Bayern Munich. I know he was on fire, was the general gist at Leipzig. And like I say, he goes to Munich, hasn't quite managed to hit those heights for whatever reason. I have to say the thing I found interesting, and I don't really take part in transfer deadline days, they wind me up, but there was a point where his agent apparently said something along the lines of he doesn't like it when he doesn't play, he's a monster. And that just sort of gave me chills, because I'm like, well, listen, if Ten Hag doesn't want you to play, you're not going to be playing. And if I was you, I would not cross the bus, because he's already shown he will not suffer fools. So there we go. I think Pierce said a really good point here. As much as we learn about ETH, he never hastens the speed of integration. See Casemiro, so Sabitzer doesn't start. However, he then immediately contradicts himself with Anthony, but I guess I get your point. He already knew him, having played with him. Jarvis seems to think that Sabitzer could be the missing piece of the puzzle if he can fill the deep playmaker role. It will revolutionise our build-up play. Pierce continues telling us a bit more about Sabitzer. Needs to take 2 touches less before the release of the ball. Decision making from him is somewhat not good, but hopefully something that could be dealt with. Connor, as far as I'm concerned, can get in the bin. I don't know what's happening here. He's starting Stu. I've got no problems with you lot starting. Where am I? I'm assuming. What's this? Chopped liver? Outrageous. Unbelievable. Me and you having words after this show.
I used to play defence midfield as well.
Well, there you go. It looks like you're full back, mate. Right back. Me, obviously, left back in the changing room. So there we go. There we go. See? Told you.
You're the gaffer. You're the gaffer.
Unbelievable. I couldn't take over from Erik. Good as I am, he's doing too well for me. And I'm a little bit busy on here. So I'll let him carry on. Andrew, I don't think you really had much to say about Sabitzer. And as he's a new sign, it would be good to get your thoughts on it. I think Stu's right. It would be a bit crazy to start him, but do you think there's any chance he could be involved at the weekend?
I'd say probably. Well, I think it's just waiting on a work permit for him. So if that all comes through in time and the registration as well, then I expect him to be on the bench. He might get, 15, maybe 20 minutes. So you can't literally rush him in at the deep end. I'd say. Well, he wasn't expecting to be here. It's only because of Eriksen's injury that was sort of a hand was forced, but Ten Hag sort of alluding in his press conference before the Forest game. It was like, there's nothing on the horizon and about, and if there was to be, it was going to be loan deals. And then suddenly an hour or two later, it was like, Sabitzer's name was coming up. Like Stu said, I've seen the YouTube clips. He looks a decent player. I know it's initially a loan, but I'm not sure whether if he does well, there is an option to buy on him as well. So I'm just thinking, in the summer, if certain midfielders go, if Sabitzer did well, then we might consider, making it a permanent deal. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he fits in alongside Casemiro, because I just think Fred just played himself in last night to, that partnership, and obviously Fred and Casemiro do well together when they're playing international football for Brazil. So it's just like Sabitzer might just have to bide his time before he gets an actual start, so he might be coming off the bench for a first couple of games. So so I wouldn't say integrate him slowly and then build him up.
Absolutely. Pierce becoming prolific over here on the comment section. We need Martial fit for the season to be successful before telling us he can win everything for us except the league. So probably a good idea not to start him at the weekend.
Still got a chance mathematically. We're still fighting on all
Barcelona.
Can I just point out, is this our first Saturday 3 p.m. game of the season?
Well, I saw that on there, and then somebody else said it isn't.
No, we've had one. We've had
It
one
must
or
be.
two. We've not had many.
But it hasn't been well.
Which
Certainly
one
this
was
year.
it? Which one was it?
This season, we've not had a home game at 3
I don't think we've had a Saturday 3.
I can't remember now.
Well, I'll tell you what, in a minute, I might have a look through BBC fixtures. Yeah. I'm not doing anything else, so I will have a little look. But I just want to point out to Alkster here, you have vastly overestimated the resources that I have at my disposal. I would happily be in charge and pop into like the Murto role or something like that. But if you're expecting me to finance this club, it won't exist in about a week. So bad idea. Let's not do that. I'll be worse than the Glazers if that's possible. I'd love the club more, but I just couldn't bankroll it. Sorry, mate. Get Ratcliffe in. He might be able to help us. What I wanted to ask, and you can go round as a threesome on this one and have a discussion. I wanted to talk a little bit about Palace themselves. It's not like that. Get out the gutter. Palace not playing. It doesn't seem like. It seems like he's out, as is James McArthur and Nathan Ferguson. Would that make any difference to you? Do you think that weakens the side? Because personally, I feel Palace are better when Wilf is in the side, certainly attacking wise. Do you think that means they might sit in a bit deeper?
Well, Zaha's out.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
6 weeks.
Questionable.
Yeah, he's injured. I would say, do you know something? Managers do this. They look at some fixtures and think, look, we'll go down there and we'll just see how it goes. And in all fairness to Vieira, Andrew's right. They've got a real tough run of fixtures coming up over the next 4 weeks. And he's got to be looking at how he can snatch the odd point here and there. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult game for us. As I said before, we'll control the tempo and the fluidity of the play because Palace will allow us to do that. I think they'll come and they'll sit really, really deep, and it'll be up to us to break them down. It's whether or not we can coax them out that gives us the gaps in between the centre halves and the defensive midfielders and the wingers. If we can get gaps in behind their fullbacks, we've got enough to win 2-0 quite comfortably, but it's going to be a very, very difficult game. He's not stupid, Vieira. There's one thing about Vieira, he's quite an intelligent, astute manager. And he knows that if they come at us and go at us, we'll pick them off and we'll beat them 4 or 5-0. He can't afford to do that on Saturday. So that's my thoughts anyway.
As I can say, just to add on that, I just think Zaha, in some ways, he's glad he's not playing against us because he can be quite a threat. And also, I remember just the game away at Palace, I'm just thinking every time he's going down and like the constant, I was going to say moaning. I was like, that's one thing I don't like about Zaha. I'm just like, stop moaning, just get on with it. But no, I just think, well, with Zaha, now you're going to obviously Elise, either Schlupp or Eze coming, and either for him in that front three. But I think Palace's trouble at the minute is finding goals away from home as well. So
they can't score, can they, Andrew? They can't score. We know that. So
I think it's the last
Park and World is on a free kick.
Yeah, I think the last 6 of 9 out of the 9 games, in the last 6 they haven't scored anything. But then again, they've come to, they can come to Old Trafford with a bit of optimism because, they've in our last 4 games, Old Trafford have taken 7 points off us. So they will fancy their chances, but I just think we'll be just too strong for them, and we'll just hopefully be by 4:45 coming away with all 3 points.
I would think so.
And John, is that how you feel?
Yeah, I feel like it will be a tough game. I think Palace will sell not too dissimilar to how they played at Selhurst Park, where they were so the pressure looked to break on the count, and I think that's the only way they can really get a result. Old Trafford, but yeah, I do think that if Zaha's going to be out, I think that'll be a blow for them, and but I think we should have enough to beat them. I will agree with Stu. I think it'll probably be 2-0.
There's a chance that in August we play Brentford and Southampton. One of those could have been a 3 o'clock kickoff. But I mean, going through, there's really not very many. So if there has been a 3 p.m. kickoff, there's only been one.
Brentford was at 5:30.
Southampton was 12:30 away because I remember doing it, so that wasn't 3 o'clock.
Well, Andrew's saying no, and I do trust Andrew. So there we go. With regards to this, Connor, whatever I like, what are you going to do about it? You want to stop me? Come and get me. Absolutely, it's going into my head. Stick me in this sort of place. Oh, the power really goes. Goodness, whatever. This is a good point. We do need to talk about Bruno because he has been amazing since the World Cup. I'd say he's been amazing full stop. I know people talk about consistency. You're never going to get a player across the board who absolutely plays their socks off and does superb every single game. But he really has been pretty brilliant, hasn't he? And we've spoken about Casemiro and how he's changed our season in the same way that Bruno did under Solskjaer when he arrived. And I think those two signings really have helped to solidify us as sort of top 4 contenders. Would you agree with that, Stu, or not so much?
I think he makes a good point about Bruno's form post-World Cup. But I have to say that Casemiro has allowed Bruno to flourish because when you've got somebody like Casemiro who gives you this kind of stability within the team, and I've spoken about how he operates, Casemiro, and if you ever watch him, he operates in 3 phases of play. And he never ventures too far from the middle of the pitch unless he has to venture out to any of the wings. And what that kind of does, it allows Bruno to not have to worry about, racing back, having to come deep to get the ball anymore, because Casemiro will take it deep and then he'll move it across to Eriksen, and Eriksen will move it. And it transitions beautifully like that. And so the way that the Casemiro effect is allowing Bruno to kind of have this free role that when he first came to Manchester United, he had this free role, this kind of floating 10. It's showing Bruno to be what Bruno is as a player, and he's not having to come out of his comfort zone and try these 30, 40, 50-yard passes from deep, because he's had to get deep to find the ball. And so he's becoming a lot more dangerous now, purely and simply because of the Casemiro effect. And it's strange, but it's how football is. It only takes one player to unlock 2 or 3. And that's why you're seeing Eriksen having more of an impact on games at the moment. I know quite at this point in time, I think he was tired. I think he was tired before he got his injury. I think he needed to come out of the team for 2 or 3 weeks anyway, Eriksen. He needed a bit of a rest. But I think Fred coming in will be kind of a natural replacement for Eriksen. It won't affect Bruno's overall effect on the team.
Okie dokie. Good stuff. Noah, you and I need to talk, young man. We need to talk. And the first we need to talk about is that your second comment, we spoke about at the beginning, you weren't here, so I'll let you off. We're not talking about that. So it won't be happening. So please don't take it the wrong way when we ignore that. But this is an absolutely disgraceful comment. At no point do we ever call Connor a legend. That's no. That doesn't happen on my shows, I'm afraid. That's no.
It doesn't happen on any show.
It's a step too far. Any man that eats a burger with a knife and fork, that's not a legend. That's a legend. So no, we're not having that.
Eats a what with a knife and fork?
Yeah.
He eats a knife and fork.
Oh, I do that as well.
Oh my! Oh.
I do that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's all gone wrong now. Look at this.
Well done, Connor.
Yes. Yes, Stu.
It's eloquence, gentlemen. It's eloquence.
Exactly.
Your hands.
Yes.
No, you don't. No, you cut in. It's eloquence. No.
I was so happy when you said that, Stu. Then Barry was expecting you to go, "Oh no, you can't believe it." No,
No, I do. In fact, me and my lad went out for a burger at Five Guys the other day, and knife and fork. That's how you do it properly.
Oh no! I'm not a fan of burgers anyway, but no.
See, you enjoy every layer. Then you take it apart. You enjoy it. Yeah. See,
You enjoy every layer if you can. If it's a nice size burger, you can get a nice clean cut, and it's tremendous.
It's a Five Guys, mate. It's squashed to absolute. I can't say the word.
They're not the best. Yeah, they're not the best. But
No.
Dear me. I've never joined a stream like this, Mid, but I just couldn't believe that you were fully expecting.
Find me out of water.
Burgers are overrated anyway.
You're right, to be fair.
Connie, you've joined at the right point because we are just about to end it there. But before we do, obviously, we need to have a little talk about what our predictions are. We've spoken about the lineup. I think we're all fairly certain that there's going to be a win against Crystal Palace. But I would like to know what you think the score is going to be and who you think is going to score it. So, Stu, we'll kick off with you.
2-0. And my man Weghorst is going to score the first goal.
Is that from a right-footed cross from Anthony?
No, it won't be from any cross from Anthony. I doubt. But I think it will be a deflection in the box and Weghorst to be there for a poacher's goal.
There we go. Big Johnny K, what say you?
I'm going to go with 2-0. I'll go with Rashford, and I'm backing Fred to score 3 goals in a row.
Why not? Andrew Wall.
Wait, I'll go.
I was going to say, well, can ill afford to, because can't go a third game without a win, but, I'm confident we'll get the win on Saturday. And I mean, Palace are not scoring that much away from home, so confident we'll return to winning ways. And I'm going to go 2-0 as well.
Brilliant. And as you're here, Connor,
I nearly dipped out, but the second you said we're wrapping up, I thought I might as well just stay to the end now. I think 2-0, yeah. I actually agree with exactly that. I think those two scorers as well. I think Rashford.
That's not a bad shot. That's a good shot, that.
Yeah, I think we'll be seeing Rashford. I think 2-0 does seem like a pretty fair sort of answer. I'd be tempted if it's going to be 2. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be 3. So actually, I'm going to go with 1 for Rashi, 1 for Weghorst, and I think Sancho is going to come back on and grab himself a goal to continue that rehabilitation. So there we go. I've done a brilliant ending, and I had a question that was stuck there that I'd written down, and I've completely forgotten about it because Casemiro and Fred both got yellow cards. So does one of you? Let's ask Connor, seeing as how he's here. Casemiro and Fred, they've got yellow cards. Now, we already had that problem where Casemiro stacked up his yellow cards and obviously missed a game, which upset lots of people against Arsenal. Does it worry you, the number of yellow cards that Casemiro stacks up, or do you just think that's what happens when you play in that position? You're as good as him.
He's from Real Madrid, isn't he? Half of that team stack up most cards, most games. So I think, I know he's not from Real Madrid when I say that. I mean, he's come from Real Madrid, where a team, when you've got playing with Pepe and Varane and Ramos and, all these other players that will, snap your legs kind of attitude. Yeah, no, I'm not worried. We'll probably see a few more suspensions throughout the season, but I don't think it's the end of the world. The problem is when Casemiro gets booked is we're so reliant on just him. That's a bit of a problem. But I'm not concerned or anything like that. They're playing well, so I'd rather them do that. And if they're going to pick up yellow cards, it's part of the game.
It is interesting, though, fellas, that and I've always said this, but any CDM worth his salt will get an abundance of yellow cards because that's your role. Your role is there to stop. And Pierce was talking about Tactical fouls, yeah, absolutely. You have to do tactical fouls, but sometimes you just got to absolutely clatter somebody, and you pick up the card. So it is what it is. I'm afraid football's all about that. You know, when we lost him for the Arsenal game, I was like, well, you know, it's going to happen. It's going to happen in life. Roy Keane used to get sent off, you know, relatively regular. Paul Ince, you know,
Just once or twice.
yeah.
Brian Robson only once, Stu.
You are sorry.
Brian Robson only once.
Robbo was a funny one because every time Robbo went down, he used to break his collarbone, didn't he? So
Yeah,
he very rarely slid tackle. But you know, the way of football at the moment, the way that players can kid each other, it's just a natural. It just happens in football. So
And I'm not being funny, John. To get a red card back in Robson's day, you know, you virtually had to take their head off. You know,
well, you did.
well, no, that was Chopper Harris.
No, it's true. I mean, crikey. I played in games in the 80s where you've hit someone and you got away with it. You know, it's true. It was you just used to get away with it all the time. Nowadays, if you brush past somebody, oh, leave me alone. I heard that did. Oh, fuck off.
Fernandinho was almost like the master at City for, you know, goals, yellow cards where you get away with it kind of thing, those tactical fouls.
John Fernandinho, if you ran past him, he'd just grab you back. That's how it should be. And then he'd leave you on the deck. That's how it should be.
But then again, Carroll didn't get a booking, did he?
And Stu, as you are currently sat on the soapbox, and this gentleman's decided to put his question across in 60 seconds or less, is it fair to say that we suit low blocks now rather than teams that come at us 24/7?
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I can see where he's coming from, but no, I'm not so sure. We still have our challenges with low blocks because we don't coax them out. Connor knows my viewpoint on a low block because we've spoken about it at great length before. You have to concede possession. It's called possession concession. You've got to allow teams to come at you, because if you don't allow them to come at you and they sit back, it makes it almost impossible, especially with our wingers at the minute. Anthony, as an example, he'll never cross the ball. And if there's a low block and there's 10 yards, 15 yards from where Anthony takes the ball to the byline, it's almost impossible to get the ball across. So you've got to allow teams to come at you. It's we don't do it enough in my opinion. But Connor knows my thoughts on this because we've spoken about it a lot.
I think that's somewhere where we do need to improve a little bit more on the Ten Hag. It's like that constant, like we're winning a lot of games, but we're scoring 2 or 3 goals, aren't we? We're not, beating teams 5-0, are we? And that's perhaps one thing. If it's possible to see now in the end of the season, you would like to win a couple of games like 4-0, 5-0 if it's possible. I think that's the next point, because we're winning a lot of games, but they're usually 2 or 3 goals most of the time, aren't they?
I mean, where a low block does lend itself to is space for likes of Anthony to do his famous left foot curler, because he's got the room and he's got the ability. He's got the ability in the room to do it. And this is where Sabitzer could come into, come in quite handy for us, because he's got a strike on him from what I've seen from outside the box. So that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. Well, gents, there we go. Lots of people involved in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And incredibly respectful. Well done. We asked you to remain away from certain things. You did that by and large. So well played comment section and well played panel. Right, what's left for us to say? What's going on tomorrow? As we said, there is a show about some new guy that's signing called Sabitzer. So he's joining us, as you well know. So he will be profiled by people that know him better than us, that's for sure. That's tomorrow. Don't try tuning on to Women's Channel tomorrow. There won't be anything because we did it tonight. So if you were missing out on that, get yourself over there and see what the Everton preview looks like. Over the weekend, a couple of things happening. I'm sure there'll be a review of the Crystal Palace game. Is that Sunday that's happening, Connor?
Sunday night, yeah.
Excellent. So Sunday night there will be a review. Monday we're reviewing the Everton game over there. I'll be back on the Women's Channel next week as well. Thank you so much for joining us for my debut here as a host. That was rather exciting. So we did quite well. What a wonderful panel. Cheers very much, Big Johnny K. Excellent work there. Andrew, are you going to be at the game at the weekend?
Of course, I'm always there.
Brilliant. Wish Erik Ten Hag a very happy birthday from me and Stu and Connor. You just need
just one point. Busby Babe, 65 years as well.
Great point. It absolutely will be. And that should certainly be something that will be forever remembered. It will never be forgotten for us as United fans, and 100% it is. You can never say enough words to give it justice, really. So we will remember them, and that is really all we can ever do. And we'll thank them as well for giving us the rich history that we've got. So, good point, well made. And it seems a bit trite now to say what I've just said. So, cheers, John. But Stu and Connor, I was going to have a go at you for your hamburger eating skills, but I think I'll let that slide based on that one. So, cheers all. Thank you very much. Take care, and we will see you again.